It's finally time to start Obi Toppin next season. The way that Obi was able to finish the season last year, in combination with the possible progression he may see after this offseason, I think it's finally time for the Knicks to move on from Julius Randle and build for the future. And starting Obi Toppin would certainly be a part of that. But quickly before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy Sports, I make opinionated NBA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. I also want to quickly mention I recently started up an MMA channel, and if you guys are interested in that, the link will be in the description. But anyways, let's get into it. Obi Toppin was drafted with the number 8 overall selection all the way back in the 2020 NBA draft. And going into that draft, there was a ton of excitement and hype around Obi's name. He was seen as a player that could literally do everything out there on the offensive side. He had the ability to spread the floor pretty effectively, had a nice catch and shoot 3-point jump shot, specifically from that corner or the top of the key. He had a pretty nice mid-range game as well. He had a phenomenal ability to put the ball on the floor, especially for a power forward. He was of course extremely athletic and had the ability to posterize literally anybody out there in the court or finish around them with crafty layups using that great athleticism. He had a pretty nice understanding of his passing and playmaking game, and he certainly had a nice passing and playmaking ability for his position. And as I mentioned, literally on the offensive side, Obi was able to do everything out there in the court, which was certainly seen as very intriguing to a lot of NBA teams. Now, the one concern about Obi going into the NBA was certainly his defense, because in college he wasn't necessarily a good defender. So if he wasn't a good defender in college, obviously he was going to struggle pretty significantly once he got to the NBA level. But I think the fact that he was so good offensively kind of made up for those defensive worries, and he was still drafted pretty highly in that year's draft. But once Obi actually got drafted into the NBA, he certainly did disappoint slightly in his rookie season, only averaging around 4 points per game on 50% shooting from the field, 2.2 rebounds, and 0.5 assists. Now, when you look at these numbers, and when you also consider the expectations he had going into the NBA, and the fact that he was seen as one of the players with the highest floors, you may wonder why people weren't necessarily freaking out after that pretty bad rookie season that he had. And the reason being is because Julius Randle that year was having an absolute breakout season, and he was getting most of the minutes for the Knicks that season, as they did make the playoffs for the first time in 8 years. So Obi wasn't necessarily getting all that many minutes. He was only averaging around 11 minutes per game, and when you watched him out there, whenever he made one single mistake, head coach Tom Thibodeau would instantly pull him out of the game at that point. So it really was very difficult for a guy like that in that situation to truly grow and to truly play extremely well right away in his rookie season. But although he wasn't necessarily putting up good numbers at all really in his rookie year, Obi certainly still was showing certain flashes of what he could potentially turn into once he starts to progress in the NBA a little bit, which is certainly giving a lot of Knicks fans hope for the future, and was another reason why Knicks fans weren't necessarily completely freaking out after his pretty bad rookie season in terms of statistics at least. And once it actually got to the NBA playoffs, Obi certainly looked a lot more comfortable out there, funny enough, and he did play a lot better in the playoffs than he did during the regular season. So although Obi didn't necessarily have the rookie season he would have liked, his first year in the NBA certainly was not a failure, as he did show certain flashes and got some confidence from that, as I mentioned. But also probably the most important thing he did in his rookie year was learn from a guy in Julius Randle, who is really teaching him what it meant to win in the NBA and what it means to work hard in the NBA, as Julius, although he didn't necessarily have a great year this year, he certainly is one of the NBA's harder workers. And in Obi's second season, he certainly did improve, bringing his numbers up across the board, averaging 9 points per game on 53% shooting from the field, 3.7 rebounds, and 1.1 assists. Now, of course, once again, these numbers aren't necessarily all that impressive and are a little disappointing considering the expectations he had going into the NBA. But when you consider that Obi was still facing the same issue that he was in his rookie year, which was Julius Randle was still getting the bulk of the minutes at that power forward position, and Obi just wasn't getting all that many minutes this season once again, only averaging around 17 minutes, which certainly was better compared to the 11 minutes he was averaging in his rookie year. But still, a guy like Obi should be averaging at the very least 20 to 25 minutes per game. It's kind of understandable why he wasn't necessarily putting up better numbers. But one issue that Obi certainly did face in his rookie season and halfway through his second season as well was he didn't necessarily look all that comfortable and confident out there in the court at times. And there was probably a few different reasons for why that was, but one of the main reasons that I could think off the top of my head is whenever Obi made a mistake out there in his rookie season or halfway through his second season, head coach Tom Thibodeau would pull him out of the game right away. So maybe Obi was trying to play perfect basketball out there so he can get more minutes and more experience, but typically when you have that mindset of trying to play perfectly and not making any mistakes, that's typically when you do make a bunch of mistakes out there, which we certainly did see from Obi in his first year and also halfway through his second year, which of course is something that you would expect from a rookie, but maybe it was a little elevated in Obi's case due to the fact that he knew he would get pulled right away if he made any mistake out there. Now maybe another potential reason for why he didn't necessarily look all that comfortable and confident out there is maybe he just needed more NBA experience under his belt to feel comfortable, but whatever the issue was, that was definitely Obi's biggest issue early on. But around halfway through his second year, which was this season, Obi finally started to feel more comfortable and confident out there and started to turn his game around. At that point, Obi was not only living up to expectations, but he was actually exceeding expectations in that short span of games that he was playing. And the reason why Obi was getting more minutes out there was due to a few different factors. The first and main reason was Julius Randle was injured a little bit to end the season, so of course Obi was going to get a lot more minutes due to that fact, but also the Knicks obviously missed the playoffs, so the younger guys were certainly getting a lot more minutes to finish off the season, and also obviously Obi was just playing a lot better out there, so he's getting more minutes due to that as well. And in the last few games of the regular season, Obi put up 20 points, 20, 19, 35, and 42, but even besides those numbers, it was pretty clear just watching Obi out there in the court that he just looked a lot more confident and comfortable out there. And after the season ended this year, I kind of made up my mind that I think it's time for the Knicks to move on from Julius Randle and move forward with Obi Toppin as their new starting power forward. Now, of course, I didn't make this decision off 4 or 5 games towards the tail end of the season, but I made this decision of how well Obi has been playing for the most part in his second season, because he was playing this well even besides that stretch that I mentioned before. But another reason for why I think it's time for the Knicks to move forward with Obi as their new starting power forward is due to the fact that Obi and RJ have a great chemistry together, and they just play very well together overall. And the reason why that's important is because it's pretty clear that RJ Barrett is a franchise guy for the Knicks going forward, and if you have other players on your roster that also are very talented, as Obi is clearly, and have a great chemistry with your main player, that's extremely important because A, you keep your franchise player happy, but also if you have better chemistry out there with a certain player, you're obviously going to play a lot better with that guy rather than if you didn't have great chemistry out there. And honestly, I don't necessarily think that RJ and Julius had bad chemistry, but I just think that RJ and Obi play a lot better than he did with Julius. Because when it was RJ and Julius, I feel like it was I take one turn, you take one turn, isolation type offense, but when it's RJ and Obi, I feel like there's a lot more pick and roll / pick and pops happening, there's a lot more ball movement happening, and it just seems like a better offense overall, and I just think that's the direction that the Knicks need to move in as a team. But we'll see what happens going forward. Only time will tell if Obi does end up getting that starting position. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Obi Toppin does deserve that starting role, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these 2 videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.